Okay, so let's begin where we left off last week, and that is in the first parak of Megillat Esther. We got to pasuk really. Let's see. We got to pasuk Yud Aleph, but let's pick up from pasuk Tes. If you're using the Art Scroll Chumash, it's 1252. Gam Vashti Hamalka asta mishte nashim beis hamalchus asher lamelech Achashverosh. So Vashti throws a feast as well, while the two other feasts that Achashverosh ran. Remember, Achashverosh ran a feast 180 days for the elite and a 7-day for the masses. And now it tells us Vashti also runs a party for the women in Bebeit HaMalchut, in the palace. Bayom Hashvi, on the 7th day, Tov Lev HaMelech Bayayin. So now the king is really stone drunk. Omar lemehuman bista charvona bikta vavakta zeisar v'charkas shivas asarisim hamishorsim espnei hamelech Achashverosh. And now on the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he ordered these mehuman zista charvona bikta, all of these 7 counselors, and I call them the administration of his rule, right? And he called him, and now this is what happens. Pasuk Yud Aleph. He instructs them, Lavi et Vashti Hamalka lifnei hamelech becheter malchut, to bring Vashti. Now they're instructed to go bring Vashti, the queen, before the king, wearing the royal crown. Right? She's to be brought to show off to the people her beauty. But now Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment conveyed by the chamberlains, by his administration, by his ministers, right? And her refusal caused the king to become incensed, and his anger burned in him. Then the king conferred with the experts who knew the times for which the king's procedure to turn to all who knew the law and judgment. Those closest to him, and they're named again, right? These are the 7 ministers of the cabinet, and he speaks to them, and they have a meeting. The agenda is, what do we do with this Vashti, who has refused to follow here and rebelled against his request that she come? So now Memuchan speaks up. Memuchan declares, what does he say? He says, this is not a quarrel just between you and your wife. It is not only the king whom the Vashti has wronged, but rather this is an official slight on all the people in all the provinces of King Achashverosh. This is a national problem. Because what is going to happen to this deed of the queen will come to the attention of all women in the nation, and they'll make their husbands contemptible in their eyes by saying, take a look. When she was summoned, she didn't come. And this day, the princes of the Persia of Media, who have heard of the queen's deed, to all the kings, there'll be much contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, and he says, if it pleases the king, let there go forth a royal edict from him. Let it be written into the laws of Persia and Madai that it be not revoked, that Vashti never again appear before King Achashverosh, and let the king confer her royal estate upon another who's better than she. ונשמע פתקם המלך אשר יעשה בכל מלכות כי רבה היא, וכל השם יבנו יקר לבעליהם מגדול ועד קטן. Then, when the king's decree, which he shall proclaim, shall be resounded throughout all of his kingdom, he's sending it to everyone, great though it be. He's sending to the 127 provinces, right? All the wives who shall respect to their husbands, great and small alike. And this proposal pleased the king and the officials, and the king did according to the suggestion of Memuchan. And he sent letters to all of the king's provinces, to each province in its own script and its own language, because he has 127 between India and Ethiopia. There are a lot of different languages, a lot of different cultures. He sends it to everyone according to their script, according to their language. He says, what is it? To the effect that every man will in his own home and speak the language of his own people. Okay, so that's what we're going to deal with this morning. Let's take a look. What really transpired? If I was to ask you in your own words, what really transpired here? What did we read? He summons her, right? He summons her on what day? On the seventh day. In which party? The party of the masses, not the party of the elite. He summons her, and it seems if you take a literal reading, and that's the way the Medrash does, what was she supposed to be dressed in? Just the crown. She's supposed to be stark nude. Okay, so right, and who sends the message?
The messengers,
the ministers of his cabinet. His cabinet is sent to bring her, and she refuses to come, and this gets him angry. But what state is he at that juncture? He's drunk. It's the text tells us he's inebriated, and so he's angry as can be. She's violated his request, and so he doesn't know what to do. He turns to his cabinet. Correct. This is what he says. He turns to his cabinet, and Memuchan speaks up, and Memuchan suggests to do what? To send out a notice to everybody, a rule, not a notice, to send out a rule from the kingdom, from the king, that this will not be tolerated. This is no longer an issue between husband and wife. This is an issue, a national grand problem, that the men will be abused by their wives, correct? And this will not be tolerated. So therefore, we're going to replace her. Where's she going? Doesn't say she's being killed, clearly, right? Right? And they send out the notice to all of the 127 provinces. That's the story. Yeah.
Do we know that Memuchan is Haman?
No.
We don't.
How do you know? No.
Because
there's a Medrash that says he's Daniel, but okay. We don't know who Memuchan is. We just know Memuchan. We know Memuchan.
he's a
Okay.
player.
Well, let's see. Well, we'll get to Memuchan in the 2 seconds. Well, Memuchan is the one who's suggesting the advice. But let's go back now and let's see what we can discern from the text itself. I want to focus on Pasuk Yud Aleph.
But just one bit, it's the same advice, though, that Haman, though, later gives with regard to Mordechai as well. It's not about Mordechai, it's about all the Jews.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Well, let's now focus on the text. Okay, 100%. You guys are already 5 steps ahead of me. Okay, Pasuk Yud Aleph. He is asking her on a literal leading, right? Just to come with her keter malchut to demonstrate her great beauty. Okay, the Rav points out that the reader must be cognizant that Achashverosh did not do this when?
during the
180 elite party days. He did not invite her to come. He's inviting her to come. The Rav reads, he says, you can't ignore that. He had 2 parties going. One was for the elite for 180 days, and one is 7 days long just for the masses. And which one does he invite her to? Doesn't invite her to the elite party that's going 180 days. You would think that that's where she should have been invited, if at all. No, he says, it makes a lot of sense. Rather, he only summons her to the second 1-week party of the masses. Why didn't he insist that Vashti come to the elite party?
I mean, my
Yeah, go
theory is
ahead.
that she was royalty. Ahasuerus wasn't, and the elite was kind of aware of this.
So,
I think the
so play
masses
so play
felt
through it.
So the masses.
Well, go back to the elite. If she would have been invited to that elite party, would have that?
That would have turned them against Ahasuerus.
Why?
Because they were the elite. They were the.
And what is she?
And she is
Exactly. Achashverosh, as we've already pointed out, was a parvunu, a man who had no aristocratic background at all. Our sages remarked that he worked as in the what?
The stable.
He was a stable. That's right. He was in the stables of Nebuchadnezzar. He was a workman, right? He lacked all royal upbringing. He knew nothing about it. He was ill-mannered and uncouth. The Rav noted that psychologically, he hated the nobility because he didn't come from nobility. He actually, that's what his wife stood for. And he was very upset. And she reminded him every day, if you will, I'm royalty, you're not. You got here, as the Medrash says, if my father was alive, he would never have allowed me to marry you. And she kept on repeating this to him, day in, day out, and the Medrash says. He knew, however.
Why did she marry him?
Why did she marry him? Why did she? That's a little weird.
No, she married him. Why do people get married? She fell in love with the guy. And remember, he has something going for him. He seems to be a military genius. He's conquered 127 provinces. He's no slouch in that sense.
I thought it was his father who was the military expert.
No, it was him. He was the military expert that we saw that at the beginning here. He conquered 120. It took him 3 years. So is he impressive? Sure. He's a military, it seems to be a military genius. And why is she attracted to them? For that reason alone, you could argue. But the Medrash says he doesn't. What about his background? His background is not royalty. His wife's background is royalty. And he knew, however, that he had to play host to these prominent elite, and he gave them a beautiful party for 180 days. He was responsible to do that because he knew that they were very important to his stability as a royal king, as a king. So he did that out of obligation. The 180-day party was out of obligation for his own benefit, right? He knew he had to play up to them. What this really all means is that he felt out of place at that 180-day. Did he feel he was in his skin or out of his skin? He felt he was out of his skin, if you will. Their speech, their manners, their posture, all irritated him because it reminded him of the royalty that he wasn't. It reminded him of who Vashti was, but not him. And there was this tension between Vashti and him. By inviting his wife, according to the Medrash, read carefully. She was being put in her place by him. I'll demonstrate to you who you really are. When you have nothing but the crown on you, who are you? You're as low as I am. Only when he invited the mobs of Shushan, the regular citizenry, was he at home. He's at home at the 7-day party, the Rav notes. He wasn't at home at the 180-day party. His background as a stable boy all reawakened in him his inability to be royalty. He wasn't born into it. She was. This explains why he only invited Vashti on the 7th day of the party for the masses, right? The second feast. In the company of the aristocrats, the Rav writes, Achashverosh behaved and played along with a semblance of dignity. But he wasn't a dignified man. He had to have manners. That wasn't natural for him. He wasn't within his own milieu. He didn't feel comfortable. He felt he was on stage as an actor at the 180-day party. But yet, at his own party, at the 7-day party, he was able to remove all of the guards. He could act, if you will, himself.
Because
he felt
the other party just fed his inferiority complex.
100%. He would have been condemned by the high society as an uncouth king if he had done this at the elite party. When he's among his own, it's a whole different story. Then he felt he could be obnoxious and even pornographic, and he would win the support of the wild masses because they're all like him. They're all wild masses. They would approve of his actions because they would see that the aristocratic queen is being brought down to their level. She's no longer being held high, right? She's one of us. And that's exactly what he does. And so the Rav points out which party? Crucial. He's inviting her to summoning her to the second party, not to the first. To the first, it would have backfired. He would have backfired big time. And that tells you, the Chazal debate is he a Russia? Is Achashverosh a Russia? Or is he a Tippish? Is he a fool? He's both. He's both. He sometimes acts very foolishly. Very fool. We're going to see what he does. He sometimes acts very foolishly. On the other hand, he has this wicked ability to think as a wicked person is not a fool. A wicked person thinks in that state of mind. And he does that. And he understands, according to this approach, he understands perfectly. I can't invite her to the party with the elite. If I invite her like that to the party of the elite, I will lose and she'll win. Right? That's why he doesn't do that. So continue on to the next pasuk, the Rav notes. Why does she refuse? Read those words carefully. Bidvar hamelech asher biyad hasarisim. What does she refuse? What does she refuse? She's not, she might play along with this pornographic idea, but how did you summons me? Did you come and ask me? Or did you send the administrators, your cabinet? Biyad, right? Bidvar hamelech asher biyad hasarisim. What did Vashti realize at that point was that her husband wasn't giving her an ounce of respect, not 1 ounce of respect. She saw Achashverosh drunk, and she saw his vulgar side was in full view. And when yayin nichnos sod yotza, Chazal say, when the wine goes in, the secrets come out. What's my relationship with you? He intentionally ignored that Vashti was the princess who descended from royalty. Just for this reason alone, she felt she deserved to be treated differently, right? He did not even personally approach her and request her. He's sending his cabinet ministers. If we read the verse carefully, what did she refuse? The Rav says, Lavod bidvar hamelech biyad hasarisim. That's what's bugging her. That's what's bugging her. She is bothered by the fact that she's not opposed, perhaps, to this idea of I'll show my beauty to the people. Maybe not. Maybe yes, maybe not. We're not told. But clearly we're told she's insulted by the method, by the process. Process is crucial. There's another striking difference that the Megillah is projecting between the Jew and the non-Jew in this story. The Gentile world had no sensitivity, the Rav points out, for the dignity of woman. Of the woman, there was no sense, certainly in the ancient times, there was no sense of dignity for the woman. Judaism, the Rav notes, has always, from its foundation, has a sensitivity for women. It has no tolerance for women to be exhibited as a sex object, none whatsoever. And the Rav noted, if you think about it, all of the halachos pertaining to the separation between the sexes, even the kol isha halacha, or all of these halachos, right? The yichud halacha. Yichud halacha was the most protective halacha that could be, and it still is. No, you're not to be secluded with a woman that you're not married to and that you're not related to. You can't do that. The Rav noted the halacha has numerous laws because it wanted to protect the woman's dignity, and the woman's dignity has to be protected. And it's to convince man that woman is of equal worth. You can't just do whatever you want. No, all of these halachos in our modern society, we think sometimes they're they're too restrictive. If you think about it, the Rav says they're not restricted at all because they're there to protect the dignity of the woman. And I quote the Rav. The Rav said, quite often I have the impression that the Torah considered woman of a higher existential caliber than man. Listen again. Quite often I have the impression that the Torah considered woman of a higher existential caliber than man. And she needs to be protected because man can act so uncouth, so inappropriate. And hey, we're sitting here in 2026, having this year when what's going on in the world? What's making news every day? It's called the Epstein file. Hello, what's the Epstein file about? Purim. About the Megillah, about Vashti and Achashverosh. That's exactly what it is. It's gone crazy. Judaism, Torah Judaism would never permit that. It never permitted that. If you would act that, hey, 1 second, I can't touch a woman that's not my wife and not my daughters, right? I can't be secluded. I shouldn't be listening to Kol Isha. All of these things, are they restrictive just to be restrictive, or do they have a goal? And Rav Soloveitchik saying they have a tremendous goal. It's the dignity of the woman. It's to protect the dignity of the woman. You don't get to these problems if you follow these halachos. What happens when you don't follow these halachos? You get an Epstein file. You do. In the stream, I heard this morning, I turned on the radio, the news. What's his name from Harvard? Unfortunately, he's a Jew.
Summers.
Summers has been stripped of every possible. I mean, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. He was president of Harvard. He was a full-time professor. He's been stripped of every dignity. What?
There's going to be so much more.
Oh, there's revealing it. But what is it? It's the Purim story. It's this chapter 1 of Megillat Esther. That's what you're seeing in front of you. That's what you're seeing.
But it's a Hillel Hashem because it's Jews that are
100%. Yes, yeah.
But I want to say for that time when she was asked to come with only her crown, it might not have been something she disliked. She was beautiful.
I said that.
And
I said that.
culturally,
The Rav points out. The Rav points out when you read that. That's why I said exactly what I said, Mary. 100%. The Rav reads this carefully, and what does he see that she rebels against?
against it was,
The way she was summoned.
yeah.
Perhaps we don't know if she rebelled against that idea. Could she have been convinced to do it? Maybe if who would have come?
If he would have said,
He would have come. He said, "Darling, let's act this way. Let's show them." She might have been convinced. She might not have been. I don't know. That's inconsequential to us. But what's consequential to us is that the way she's being summoned is what she. So it's a fight over. And now you understand the medrash. It's a fight between him and her over his background or lack of background. She has the royalty, he doesn't. It's the thorn in his side. It's clearly the thorn in his side. So the Rav goes on. Just follow the text here. He says everything is being taught to us exactly. So say he's stone drunk. He gets stone drunk, and that's important to the story. Because now you're one of the cabinet ministers, and he turns to you and he says, "What am I to do with my wife? She revolted against me." But he's inebriated. Take a look at what happens. It's very, very, very important. Pasuk Tezayin in the story. Jump to the advice. Vayomer Meluchan. Stop. Bachrach. Who was Bachrach? Bachrach wrote a magnificent book, a small little book. It's called Kitzvuni Lidorot. He wrote a book on Esther, and he wrote a book that I have on Ruth. He was a brilliant teacher of Tanakh for years at Michlala. For years. I think he was Nifter. I don't think he's still alive. But his works are masterful. He takes the Midrashim and he weaves them into the text. He demonstrates how Chazal understood why these Midrashim could easily be within the purview of the text. Anyhow, he says the following. Take a look. Vayomer hu, in Pasuk Tezayin, Vayomer hu, Memuchan. 1 second, Memuchan. Go back to the list of Pasuk Yudalit. They have 7 members of the cabinet. Read them. Where's Memuchan in this list? He's number 7. He's number 7. Now, they're not going alphabetically there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you list them, what did you say? Karshana, Shesar, Admosa, Tarshish, Meras, Marsana, and Memuchan. How do you think they're being listed? He notes.
by honors.
Oh, that's correct.
by importance, by stature around the table. Who sits next? You see the cabinet pictures of the cabinet meeting with the president. The president sits in the middle, and who's to his right? Who's to his left? The cabinet minister of defense and the state, and the cabinet minister. Rubio is on one side, and Hexter is on the other side, right? Why? Because one's the minister of defense. That's very chashuv, and the Secretary of State. Those are the two most distinguished positions. And then you have it around the table, correct? Well, Memuchan is where? Memuchan is the last. Who's speaking up? Isn't that fascinating? The one who's the least of stature, he speaks up. Memuchan shifts. And what does he do? Number one, that would suggest he's the least prestigious, yet he's the one who speaks up. What is this? What is it about this suggestion that is so impressive? That's what you have to ask. What did Memuchan say? Memuchan had quite a personality then. He might be the smallest in stature in terms of his position, but he's the one who's speaking up. And does Achashverosh buy what he says? 100%. He says, wow, what did he say? What is his suggestion? Now Bachrach analyzes the suggestion. Remember what he suggests. What is Memuchan suggesting? Memuchan, according to Bachrach, suggests to the king two very crucial points. Point A, Memuchan shifts the rebellion from a personal insult of the king by his wife to what? A national problem. It's a national impact. Why is that so important? It's no longer what? A squabble between a husband and a wife, correct? Note that he calls her refusal to appear in Pasuk Yud Zayin a Devar HaMalka, right? Here, Pasuk Yud Zayin, take a look. Ki yetzei Devar HaMalka al kol hanashim, right? This is a Devar HaMalka, one that has, by framing it in this way, it's no longer that petty argument, that squabble between a husband and a wife. If it was just a squabble between the king and the queen, well, then it was possible that one could easily argue that the king was wrong in that squabble, right? Well, maybe you initiated it. You caused it. You acted inappropriately. However, what did Memuchan do? It was brilliant. No, it's not just an argument between you and Vashti. Rather, maybe the king has been insulted not as a king, but as a national figure. If it's just you and a wife, maybe you've overreacted. Maybe you are responsible. But Memuchan shifts it away from that, because you can certainly, if you leave it at that level, he can easily, anybody with a little sense can say, you acted inappropriately. She's responded according to the way you acted. When Memuchan did this, he removed all responsibility from whom? That's right. It's a brilliant maneuver. Why does Achashverosh love it? Because he's no longer a point of guilt. He doesn't know. He's no longer possibly the one who's responsible for his queen's rebellion. It's rather a problem that's going to impact the national psyche. And from this perspective, the king did nothing wrong, and Vashti is singularly guilty, and he loves it, right? That's what Achashverosh, brilliant maneuver by Memuchan. Number two, Bachrach points out, Memuchan acted like a similar personality in Tanakh. Who else gave this kind of advice? Who else in Tanakh gave this kind of advice? Yosef to Paro. Yosef to Paro, Bachrach says. Yosef is summoned to do what? Interpret dreams. Does he just interpret dreams? What does he do? He offers a plan, and he offers then an exact plan on how to implement it. That's exactly back in Parshas Miketz, 2 seconds. He's not only offering an explanation to Paro of what his dreams are, but he offers a master plan, and he offers exactly how to implement it. Yosef and Memuchan are acting identical, or Memuchan and Yosef are acting identical. Memuchan offers Achashverosh not only an interpretation of what the battle is between his wife and shifts it from a personal to a national level, takes all guilt away from him, but he also offers a plan. And that Achashverosh loves. Exactly the plan, which is important. Yes.
I'm just wondering why this elite cabinet of his came to the second party. The first party was for the elite.
No, they're the cabinet minister. They're summons. They're not participating in that party.
Oh.
They're summons. Yeah, after he has a big problem. So what does he do? He calls for his cabinet
Do
meeting.
we know for sure that Memucan isn't Haman?
We don't know who Memucan is.
Very.
You're not told. Are you told? One second. Are you told in the text Memucan Haman? No. So just from the text, you don't know who Memucan is. You just know Memucan is Memucan is Memucan. He's a member of the cabinet. You know he's listed number 7, and you know he's the one who speaks up. And Bachrach asks a very simple question. How could it be the guy who's number 7 speaking up? Because he quite evidently has quite a strong personality. But besides that, this is going to now elevate him big time. He realizes he has a lot to gain by speaking up. He has a lot to lose too. But he is so sharp and so shrewd. Pay a close attention. When you read this story carefully, how does Memucan act? Does Memucan give every detail of the plan outlined to Achashverosh exactly what to do? He gives him a plan and he shows him how to implement it. But he leaves out crucial elements, because what does Memucan have to worry about? The day after the wine disappears out of the system and he's no longer stone drunk, what could happen? Achashverosh could wake up and go nuts. What did I do? What did I do? Who? And no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He sticks with Memucan very much. Pay close attention. So based on these 2 points, it is clear that the other 6 advisors who served the king's cabinet, right, did not want to inflame the situation at all. They hear the story, and what did they say? Oh my God, the husband and wife are having a fight. What do we need to get involved in this? Anybody who gets involved in a squabble between a husband and a wife, you never walk away clean. You just never walk away, right? That's what they're saying. The 6 of them are saying that. Bachrach notes. Why did they speak up? Because they saw it was a no-win situation. I'm going to get involved. Memucan, however, realized, yes, the stakes, that is possible. But if I give a out from Achashverosh, from being just a squabble between his wife, and I transform it into a national problem, and he's removed from any guilt, wow, whose side am I going to be on? I'm going to be number 1. I'm not going to any longer be number 7, right? By doing this, they were allowing the king to be accused of guilt by not speaking up, the 6 of them. And Memucan played for it, and he plays for it brilliantly. But Memucan does a few very important things. Okay, he gives a plan, but pay close attention to what's going to happen. Go to Pasuk Yutes. Now, Im al hamelech tov. Here you're going to see the brilliance of Memucan. Until I read Bachrach and studied it carefully, I didn't pay attention to this. It is a brilliant read of the text. Memucan, again, is giving, like Yosef, advice and how to implement the advice, right? He's giving a plan of action. But he doesn't dot every I and he doesn't cross every T. He allows very crucial elements to be filled in by whom? That's right. Why? Because he knows darn well tomorrow he may very well wake up and he was no longer drunk. And what's going to happen? He's going to wake up and he's going to be angry at who told me to get rid of Vashti, right? So there's a lot online from Memucan. He's walking a very thin rope, right? He's walking very careful. He has to be very careful. So notice what he does. Im al hamelech tov. Yetzei devar hamalchut milfanav. What does that mean? Im al hamelech tov, right? What does this mean? If it pleases the king, what is he doing? Let there go forth a royal edict from him,
He's putting it
right?
back in.
Im al hamelech tov, yetzei devar malchut milfanav. Writing that. Did Memuchan write the edict for him?
No.
Here, just sign your name and send it out. Here, I wrote it. Memuchan is playing it very smart. Memuchan is really a sharp guy. He knows what he's doing, right? He knows that his advice will remove any guilt from the argument on Achashverosh's part. That very carefully, walk this very carefully. So he turns and he says, if you agree with this, then whose signature is going to be on this? Yours. Let the king, therefore, create the royal edict. You're going to write it. Right? And then it will be not revoked because it's going to have yours. Asher lo tavo vashti lifnei hamelech Achashverosh u'malchuta yitein hamelech liru'uto hatova mimeno. He says, based on this, Bachrach says, Memuchan acts very carefully. He's not rushing in. He's not putting his signature on it at all. He doesn't spell out the decree at all. He lets Achashverosh write the decree. And that leaves all to Achashverosh. When he wakes up tomorrow morning, it's not Memuchan. Whose decision was it? Yetzei Malchut. It went from him. He knew all too well that when the wine would wear off, he might be the person who the korban for all of this. That is why he lets the king proceed on his own, with his own words, right? And at his own schedule. Achashverosh, you decide when and where and how. He's just giving advice, but he's leading. He's brilliant. What has he done? He's led Achashverosh down the path. Correct? He's led it. It's a brilliant maneuver, what Bachrach is pointing out. Now pay attention to the next pasuk. V'nishma pitgam hamelach asher yaseh b'chol malchuto ki rabahi v'chol hanashim yikor lebaleim lemigadol ve'ad katan. Right? Pasuk 20. Then, when the king's decree, which she shall proclaim, again pointing out, what is the text pointing out? Whose decree is this? It's the king's decree that she shall proclaim. It shall be resounded throughout the kingdom. What's the decree, please? Tell me what the decree is. What's the decree? All the wives will show respect to their husbands, great and small alike. Now that is a brilliant decree, isn't it? Isn't it? It's a brilliant decree. Ladies, what do you think?
I agree.
No,
Like
but forget about the fact that we're, that you're female. Just tell me right now, is that the stupidest thing in the world?
Today it is, but in those days.
In those days, you think that?
Cultures today, it's.
Miriam, think about it for 2 seconds. Can you decree that? Can you put out a decree that says husbands, wives must respect husbands? That is now a national law. Right? It is absurd. It is cuckoo. It is foolish as can be. It makes no sense that decree should be the decree. Memuchan never puts his fingers on it. He doesn't have any of his fingerprints on this. Whose fingerprints are on all of this? The king. Whoa. Is that as stupid? He's making, now this is Memuchan, is very shrewd. He's changed the focus of the argument, right? From a squabble of a husband and wife to a national problem, so that it's no longer Achashverosh's guilt. Achashverosh did nothing wrong, right? And he leaves it to Achashverosh to write the decree. How stupid a decree was it?
I don't know. Till today in the Muslim world, the
Yes.
word is silenced, right? So it's a decree that really lasted.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. in the privacy of their home. Do you know what's going on?
No, but the husband.
Oh,
the
so
right
that's
to
what the
make
Rav points out. Ruchama, that's what the Rav points out. The Rav says that this is the most stupid possible kind of decree at all because it's impossible to implement. It's impossible to judge. Nobody knows what happens. Isn't the famous expression, nobody knows what happens behind closed doors?
But
What does that mean?
there's no fair judging. The woman will owe
Ruchama, this is a judgment against Ru. This is a judgment against whom? Against what is being implemented here? What is the decree? How behind closed doors the women are to treat the men? Is there any way to follow through on this? No. That's what the Rav points out. It's a privacy behind. You can't. No, it's not. Excuse me. In the world, this doesn't happen. Even in the Middle East world, it does not happen. It does not. They cannot control what's behind closed doors. Nobody can control what's behind closed doors. You can't dictate how a husband and a wife are going to act to each other. You can't. It's impossible. I don't care what society you live in. And that's what the Rav points out. It's as absurd as can be. One must wonder how he could have made this kind. And based on this, now you'll understand what Chazal say in the Megillah.
I still think that maybe you can't dictate, but it just is the heter for how the man rules the woman in the Muslim world. And they could just bring her to judgment, kill her.
But Ruchama, listen to the words of the text. The words of the text is that it's an edict against the privacy behind closed doors. And only an idiot, the Rav says, could have issued orders that have no way to be instituted once they're legislated. 2 seconds. No legislation is able to regulate an intimate relationship between a husband and a wife. It is not talking about the marketplace. It is talking about the home, and that you can't dictate at all. This all depends upon the character of a relationship between a husband and a wife, and that can never, ever, ever be legislated. Yet, the Rav notes, Hashem willed Achashverosh to issue this ridiculous order for one purpose, because it's going to undermine Achashverosh's prestige in the eyes of the community. They lost faith. When you received this and you were a member of one of these 127 provinces, you lived under his rule and you received this edict. You know what you said to yourself? You scratched your head and we said, dude, we got an idiot in Shushan? Who's running these 127 provinces? That's exactly what Hashem wanted people to realize. They lost faith in their leader when they received this ridiculous edict. He lost his total credibility. This was all God's plan. God is planning. Remember, Hashem's name does not appear in this entire book, but God is the puppeteer. He got it through Memuchan, through to Achashverosh, but Achashverosh is the one that signs it. And Achashverosh, they don't know. You're living in Ethiopia, under his control, under Achashverosh, and you get this ruling, this edict, and it comes, by the way, in your language, in your script, and with your signature. The king back in Shushan, and you read this, and the Rav says, you say, is this ridiculous? He's telling me how to run my home behind my closed doors? No king can do that. Nobody can do that. This was essential according to Chazal. The Gemara records in Megillah, Yud Beis Amid Beis, the following, and the Rav quotes this. Rava said, were it not for these first letters that Achashverosh sent here, this edict, based on the advice of Memuchan, right? Were it not for these first letters, not one survivor would have been left among the Jewish people. Listen again. The Rav sees this Gemara, and the Gemara in Yud Beis Amid Beis in Megillah says, were it not for these first letters with the signature of Achashverosh on them, saying what? Husbands and wives have to respect the husbands behind closed doors. That's basically what it says. He says, were it not for these first letters, not one survivor would have been left among the Jewish people. What does that mean? So the Rav quotes Rashi. Rashi says, for the people, listen carefully to what Rashi understands that Gemara to see, and then you'll understand how brilliantly the Rav is reading this whole story. For the people would have hastened to kill the Jews at the command of the king in the second letters. Remember, there are two letters. What's the second letter? That's the one Haman recommends, and Haman sends. And what is that one? That we should be wiped out. Mikoton agadol, right? We should be wiped out because we're Amma Mufuzar Mufurad Ben Amin. We deserve to be destroyed, right? And he sent that letter. He said, for the people would have hastened to kill them at the command of the king in the second letters, and they would not have waited until the appointed day. They were told to kill us on Yudalet Adar, right? They were told to kill us. They were sent those letters a year ahead of the plan. So Rashi says, you want to understand Rava? If they wouldn't have received the first letter, they would have implemented the second letter, not even waited. They would have killed Jews in the streets right away. But because of the first letter, they scratched their head and they said, whoa. Who sent us the second letter? In other words, in order that, right, in order about the rights, because he wrote the first letter, right, saying that men must rule in their homes and the women must be subordinate to the men, they would have exterminated without that. They would have exterminated us right away. Neither Esther nor Mordechai would have been able to save us. That's what the Rav writes. That's what Rashi means. He wouldn't have saved us because they would have gone right out and killed us. But the second letter came after the first letter. So the whole miracle of Purim would be only possible because of the stupid letter that Ahasuerus sent here in this first. And the king sent to the people commanding the females to give respect to their husbands. That the people said, to who's running this government? Is because of this stupid first letter that they did not immediately execute on the 13th of Adar. 1 second. They waited 11 months. Why did they wait 11 months? To find out if the guy in Shushan really sent us the second letter. Is he with it or is he going crazy, right? Yeah, well, should we really implement this letter? We better find out a little more about who Ahasuerus is. And the reason they needed to test all of this is because they saw that they got a king who might not be stable. He might be who knows who's giving him letters to sign. We better not do anything, because if we implement what he said in the second letter, and it's not what he meant, who's going to pay for it? We will. We'll jump on the bandwagon, we'll kill the Jews even before the date, and then we're going to find out, well, no, that's not what he meant. What's going to happen to us? We're going to be held guilty. So you know what? We're going to wait. That was the nace of Purim. The nace of Purim is all in this first story, where you read this chapter, you just read this without these insights, you would walk away from this whole story, and what would you think? Okay, the first chapter sets the historic footing for this whole story. Oh no, this first chapter is already showing you HaKadosh Baruch Hu is playing it all out brilliantly. He's the violinist with his violin in hand, and he's playing beautiful chords. He gets this argument between Vashti and Achashverosh. That starts it all. He gets a Memuchan to translate it. No, it's not a squabble between husband and wife. It's a national problem. He gets Achashverosh to write the most stupid edict in the world that cannot be legislated. You cannot legislate that. You can't legislate how husbands and wives are going to act behind closed doors. The people receive it, and they scratch their heads. And they said, whoa, who's running our country? Who's running the government? So when they received the second letter, they said, whoa, we better find out a little more about this guy. Let's not jump to conclusions. That's what the Gemara is saying. That's how the Rav understands what this first chapter is doing. It's setting the pattern to understand the whole story that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge. Yes.
Yeah, okay, I've got two questions that are related. The first one, in time, how far apart were the letters that went out? The first letter that he wrote
Right.
went out, and then the second one that went out to kill the Jews. How far apart? in
We're not
time?
told how far apart, but there's a good time
It's a
allotment.
long
Yeah,
period.
there's a good time allotment. We're
Okay.
not told exactly,
Yeah.
exactly how much,
And
but
another thing,
but there's a time allotment.
yeah, another thing that makes me think Haman was indeed Haman is that the king so trusted. The first time Haman said, "You sign the letter." The second letter, he just took off his ring, which was his signature, and say, "Here, it's yours. You do it." So there was a shift in.
You can say you can follow that theory that Memuchan is Haman. You don't have to. That's all I'm saying. You can read this book beautifully without even going down that road. There is a medrash that says Memuchan is Daniel, and that's not a Russia.
No.
Okay, so it matters. Memuchan, we only know nowhere in the text does it tell us Memuchan is Haman. This is another name for Haman, right? Nowhere we're told. But what you see in this whole story is how Memuchan is very careful on how he presents his idea to Achashverosh. I should go back. Number one, you see the brilliance of what Memuchan does, right? He removes all guilt from Achashverosh in his relationship with Vashti. That's a brilliant maneuver. Number two, he never puts his name on it. His fingerprints are not there. By just letting the king make the decisions. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant maneuver. And now we understand what Chazal meant and why does he send these letters out? Why doesn't Achashverosh, why does anybody realize I can't legislate that? I'm gonna have guards in everybody's home, and we're gonna see how every husband treats every wife? It's impossible. That's why the legislation is stupid. If you can't enforce a legislation, don't make the legislation. That anybody in government knows is rule number one. If you can't enforce the rule means zilch. Not only that, you look like a laughingstock because you're not going to be able to control, to implement what you've legislated. Legislation is only as good as enforcement. If you can't enforce, right? Shoftim v'shotrim. You need the judicial and you need the police. And if the police can't enforce that which the judicial legislates, it's worthless. That's what the Rav is pointing out. It's so silly because the legislation had no teeth to it. If it has no teeth to it, it's not describing, Ruchama is correct 100%. I don't disagree. The Middle East and Ad Hayom Hazeh has this, I said that before, this attitude towards women. And this is by the way, another point of the revolution of Judaism in the world. Another point, there were so many revolutions that Judaism offered the world and still does to this very today. And here you see, it's also our attitude towards women. As the Rav said, I think, what was the Rav's exact words? That I think the Torah places the woman on a higher caliber existentially than the man, which makes a lot of sense that the Rav is saying this. By the way, if you knew anything about the Rav's relationship with his wife and with his mother, it reflects the Rav's thinking. His mother is the one who influenced him to become Rabbi Soloveitchik that we knew, meaning his mother, who was a Feinstein. She wasn't a Soloveitchik, she was a Feinstein. She was Rav Moshe Feinstein's cousin. They were cousins, which is typical, by the way. If all of the Gedolei Yisrael married into each other, that's how we kept on creating more geniuses and more geniuses. But she was the first cousin to the to Reb Moshe. The Rav's mother was a first cousin to Reb Moshe. So Reb Moshe and the Rav were second cousins, whatever it was, once removed, whatever. But they were very close, by the way. Reb Moshe and the Rav were very, very close. To their dying day, they were very close. But the Reb Moshe, it was Mrs. Feinstein, Mrs. Soloveitchik, excuse me, his mother, who was the one who convinced him, who introduced him to secular education, introduced him to literature, to philosophy. And then he goes, of course, on to the University of Berlin, which was the Harvard of Germany of the time, right? It was the most elite of all of the schools. And he gets his PhD in philosophy in 1932. But that's his mother. His wife, who also, by the way, has a PhD. His wife is also his wife. They were glued to the hip. They did nothing separate. They did everything with each other. They built Maimonides, the first day school in that area, in the Boston area, in the whole northeast of the country, right? They built it together. She became the head of the school. And, but they did it together. And after she dies, he was a broken man. The Rav was a broken man. Do you know that the Soloveitchiks never went to the cemetery? That was their minhag. After the Levaya, they never went to the cemetery. They were against going to that was the Shita of the Soloveitchiks. Soloveitchiks, the Feinsteins, also the Reb Moshe writes. They never went to they never go for a yortzeit. No. The Rav went every Friday morning to his wife's grave. Mm-hmm. Every Friday morning to his wife's grave. He held his wife on the highest caliber. He's right when he says, hey, I think that Judaism places the woman at that elevated level. He was reflecting his own perspective, 100%. So anyhow, okay, so this chapter, how do we read it? We see it now in its totality as the introduction to the rest of the story, right? We're placing the seeds for what's going to now occur. Chapter 1 is crucial because when you read it, you say, hey, I could have skipped chapter 1. I could have written Megillat Esther with one less chapter. Oh, no, you can't. Not when you read it this way. This way, it's the introduction to the whole miracle. It's setting the pattern for the whole miracle. Okay?
But this is like a tease. It's not fair. Firm's next week and it's going to end.
Yeah, next. Yeah.
From here so that eventually we'll get it all.
Yeah, eventually. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
And then it's ironic that Esther is the one who saved everybody, right? That the woman who was supposed to be put down is the one that saved